trouble understanding why a lot of people are so worried about the increasing savings rate. And let me give you an example, or vis-a-vis just continued increased spending. If you go out and buy a PC tomorrow, that stimulates the economy, right? If you take that money and put it in the bank and save it, and the bank loans that money to a business who wants to upgrade their IT department, and they buy a PC, what's the difference? In other words, money put into savings isn't necessarily dead money, is it?
No, it's not dead money, but... Oh, okay. He's asking why is the increasing savings rate concerning to a lot of people? If they save it, it will get lent back out and recirculated in the economy, basically. Well, that's true to a certain extent. First of all, the banks have to be willing to lend it, which hasn't happened a lot lately. And really more importantly, and what we've found, is that businesses have to be willing to borrow it. And that company that you're referring to that wants to borrow money to upgrade their computer system and buy the PC, if people aren't buying their product, they're not going to feel comfortable borrowing the money to buy that PC. So just as there could be this feedback loop, and that's what we saw in Japan, basically, and there were other issues as well, but consumers wouldn't spend, so businesses wouldn't invest, so consumers wouldn't spend, and it's just this spiral, deflationary spiral. And yet, we definitely needed to increase savings rate. And if we increase it, if we stay where we are right now, 5%, I think we're okay. That, yeah, spending will be decreased, GDP will be decreased because not all of that money will be lent out again, but it's not all going to be, you're exactly right, dead money. But GDP will be a little less than it would be otherwise under the old spending scenario. But if we continue to rise at the rate we've been rising and get to 10 to 15%, that's a big chunk out of US GDP. Businesses are going to be really nervous about hiring and investing. And that's why we are watching that savings rate pretty carefully. Yeah?
Along those lines, the demographics of the United States is the population's getting older. Mm-hmm. And as they get older, they spend less money. What happens as the demographics changes with not enough money to keep the 70% going into the economy?
He's asking about demographic changes, and we're not sure about that because we're coming up to, obviously, baby boomers are getting, the whole baby boomer generation is getting older, and we're approaching just a massive wealth transfer from the older generation to a younger generation, as unfortunately the older generation passes away. There's just a lot of wealth out there. So what are we going to see? As America ages, and we are aging slowly, not nearly as rapidly as some other countries, but we are aging, it's going to be a bigger strain and more demand for government services. And that's part of what we're seeing with healthcare right now. And there will be spending shifts. And unfortunately, I don't know I haven't seen good research or been able to come up with exactly how that's going to shift at this point in time. As population ages, it would make sense that they would spend a little bit less. They're earning less, and they would pare back on their lifestyles. Kids move out, but some of that wealth is being transferred to a younger generation that is in their building phase. So is that going to help prop up that spending? I don't know that it will offset it again, offset it completely, but I think it will help make up for that. So I think the aging population will be gradual, so we won't see a huge change in spending, but I wouldn't be surprised to see, say, that 70% drift a little bit lower as we age. But the market can handle gradual changes. It's sudden changes that really cause a problem. Yeah?
But the way the government is printing money and the value of the dollar is decreasing, that tends to lend itself to a high inflation rate.
Mhm.
Now, what do you have to say about how we look out for that in the future here?
Well, I say we should look out for that in the future. That right now, people are talking about inflation, and we have quite a bit of unused capacity. You saw we have quite a few unused employees, so wage pressures are low, so it's unlikely that we have an inflation problem in the near term. That's where the Fed stands. Now, what we are watching carefully is what does the government do? Because if they don't pull back, if the Federal Reserve doesn't pull back and raise interest rates at the right time, there's going to be this massive amount of cash out there that is going to fuel inflation. The one thing, I don't know if this is comforting or not, we know how to fight inflation. It's not particularly pleasant at times, but we've proven that we can fight inflation. The Federal Reserve knows how to do that. They're a little more nervous about fighting deflation. As we talked about just a minute ago, that feedback loop is tough to break once you get into it. So that's why they're being maybe even overly aggressive now, because Bernanke's a great student of the Depression, and getting into this deflationary spiral is far more concerning to them than having to step on the brakes a little bit hard once we get into inflationary scenarios. So what we're looking at is, if foreign governments stop buying our debt or become more reluctant to, and interest rates start to creep up, unemployment starts to come down, and the Federal Reserve isn't taking away the monetary stimulus, then we're going to have to be concerned about inflation. Right now, it's 50-50 whether they can do it or not. They don't know if they'll do it. It's a very, if they do it too quickly, we go back into recession. If they do it too slowly, we have inflationary problems. So it's a delicate balance. And I can't predict what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But it is something to watch, because it is certainly a possibility as we go forward. Yeah?
Generally speaking, what grade would you give money managers on the final exam they all took managing clients' assets in the last 18 months? A, B, C, D, or F? We had a nice final exam. What's the grade?
Well,
I'm sorry, I should have asked an easier question.
no, that's fine. I think it's tough to give a final exam now, and there were certainly many money managers that deserved an F, but there were also that deserved an A. And I would say overall, the industry, as far as money management goes, probably deserves somewhere around a C to D over the last 18 months. The industry in general didn't police itself well at all. Loan standards were ridiculous. But managing individuals' money, if those money managers were there saying, yeah, we're going through a rough time, I don't think anybody could see that that was going to come and happen like it did, but let's look at long term. I think that deserves some credit as well. I think that's what you pay a money manager for, is not to panic when things are terrible.